Epperly, a founder and CEO who's ready to rewrite the definition of imposter syndrome. I created Who Made You the Boss to let you know that you're not alone. If you've been wondering whether your burnout is actually a sign toward evolution, or if perhaps there's something more to these challenges we face as leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs, you're in the right place if you're looking to embrace the challenges you once perceived as negative, if you're ready to own your entire story, and if you're working to level up your business in ways you never thought possible. You'll learn all of this and more by listening in and doing the hard work you know you were meant to do. So let's get started together today on Who Made You the Boss. Welcome back, listeners. We are here for another season of Who Made You the Boss. And based on the overwhelming response I received to our season 1 finale about turning imposter syndrome into inspiration, you will see a concerted effort in this season to really drill down on the topic of imposter syndrome, right? How do we go about defining imposter syndrome? And then how do we go about tackling it? So to start, I've actually created a workbook for you that can help with that journey. You can grab it at lindseyepperly.com/resources. Basically, it takes you through the prompts that helped me come to the conclusion that I had that I can use this as fuel for my own success. And this is all after I fled that private island retreat. And if you haven't heard that full story yet, it's episode 11 from season 1. I'll link to both that episode and the workbook in the show notes. Today, though, I want to wind it back. I want to talk about the origin stories of our imposter syndrome. You know, it's important that we think back to the ways in which this may have first manifested in ourselves, and studying those emotions is such a huge part of the process that helped me, and that's something I take you through in the workbook too. But I am curious if you've ever had an experience in your life where you felt like you didn't belong. Maybe you were at a place because you sensed a difference in your upbringing or your beliefs or your skin color or your gender from everyone else around you. I can't help but wonder if that is oftentimes the root of our imposter syndrome, to be the only person in the room who, insert whatever difference you have here, right? Who looks like me, who dresses like me, who is raised like me. And if you've ever felt like that, then today's episode is for you, because I felt like that too. And I'm going to share a couple of stories with you about the origin story of my own imposter syndrome. And then I want us to learn how to flip the script and embrace this phenomenon. So before I owned Jetset World Travel and sat as the CEO, which, by the way, has brought its own fair share of imposter syndrome moments. Like, why do you think I created a podcast called Who Made You the Boss? I spent my 20s as a luxury travel advisor. So what exactly does that mean? I planned 4- and 5-star trips for clients looking to go around the globe, which meant I also got access to testing out the products, which sounds absolutely lovely, right? Yeah, absolutely. No one's going to argue that getting to spend your college spring break at the St. Regis Bora Bora is not a significant job perk. It was. I am so grateful for it. It was amazing. But there is this concept in the travel industry called sense of place. As in, how did you feel when you were in that particular space? And 10 times out of 10, when I was in a luxury hotel or when I was attending a travel conference surrounded by people who knew luxury, I felt like a total outsider. I remember checking into my first work event at a nice hotel in Atlanta and encountering a valet for the first time in my life. Because I grew up in a small town. We did not have valets. I had no idea other people could park your car, did not know this service existed. But fake it till you make it, right? I pretended like I knew what I was doing. I handed over my keys, and then I immediately went to like a quiet corner and I called my dad and I go, what just happened? Did I just like politely get mugged? And how do I go about getting my car back? So I started the career when I was barely old enough to drink. And when you are that young and impressionable and work takes you to a place like this, your brain can go one of two ways. Like one, wow, what an incredible perk that I deserve for working so hard. Or the direction my brain went, oh my God, how long before someone finds out that I am just a 20-year-old who stumbled into a travel agency for a brochure and accidentally walked out with a job? Can they tell that this place costs more money than my entire apartment's rent for the year, or that I've never stayed in anything nicer than a Sheraton, or that I just really, truly don't belong here? On my first educational trip to Tahiti, I had a 7-course tasting menu. I'd never had anything like that in my entire life. It was at this incredible Relais and Chateau hotel. And then I learned what foie gras was. And I had a minor panic attack because I saw the number of forks beside the plate and I had no idea which fork to use for this substance that I had never even encountered before. I still don't really know. But this theme, I share those stories, would just be kind of reoccurring for me, that try as I might, I always felt like I was just off base from the expectations of what someone in this field should dress like, act like, talk like. And I tried to learn, right? I tried to take wine classes to be more proficient in the bottles I was being served. I even did an online etiquette course to try to learn about what cutlery to use when. And for some reason, it is like my brain just could not retain this information. Like I really, truly studied. And, just like I really, truly studied economics in college and I failed, I also failed at this too. So there was even a moment when I was at a very nice luncheon, like this upper echelon event in our industry. And one of the C-suite executives saw my dress and goes, "Oh, your dress is exquisite. Is that vintage Chanel?" And without missing a beat, I go, "Oh my God, no, it's Banana. Like Banana Republic. For the love of God." Just smile and pretend like it's vintage Chanel, Lindsay, right? Like my brain just couldn't get it. Try as I might, you guys, I could not contort who I was at my core with the role I was expected to assume in this world of luxury. I was a really good salesperson. I think I'm a really good leader, but that doesn't mean I have to be a really inauthentic version of myself to pretend I'm someone I'm not just to fit in. And that is something that I've had to come to terms with as I continue to succeed in a world where oftentimes I don't feel like I totally belong. And I know I'm not alone in feeling this way in my particular industry, but I know that it also just is not talked about frequently. That's why I'm bringing it up here. There are a lot of individuals in luxury industries who are used to this. They grew up with this caliber of wealth. They appear to belong just perfectly. And that is no slight against them at all. It's just that there are those of us who did not and who I think are just oftentimes waiting to be found out because we're not willing to admit it. Society tells us, I said this even earlier in the conversation, just fake it till you make it. That was always my motto. But I am so tired of faking it. That is what I believe breeds imposter syndrome. We're taught to do this very much from an early age. You either belong or you don't. And for me, the understanding that I didn't belong in an upper class type of environment actually started thanks to an experience that I had in high school. I attended a college prep school that had some wonderful people, but it also had a number of individuals who placed an emphasis on whose name was on the building more than anything else, right? And who was donating and who was important, who had been there all their lives and all of their parents' lives and all of their grandparents' lives. And to those people, many of whom were in positions of power and authority at the school, no amount of kindness or character or even intelligence would supersede who you were based on what your family was worth. So during that high school tenure, I dated a guy whose mother was obsessed with climbing the ranks of social status. And when he started dating me, he was very much going in the opposite direction of her dreams. So while my family did well for themselves, they were self-made, right? My dad was building a business along the way. My dad came from absolutely nothing. We did not have the pedigree. We did not travel to the St. Regis Bora Bora. We did not know which forks to use when served foie gras. And there are just so many subtle clues that tell us to stay within our designated lanes that culture and society kind of constantly give to us. And gosh, this is especially true of marginalized groups. So I can only imagine if I felt this coming from a great amount of privilege, thanks to a family who worked hard and showed up with love, I can only imagine how much others who have deeper levels of systematic injustices really feel this. I was given access to incredible opportunities thanks to a career path that I just could have never dreamed of. And I have hustled to turn even just a modicum of those opportunities into abundance. But in this scenario that we're about to talk about today, what I want to focus on is that no matter what world or background or society or culture we are representing, it is never okay to intentionally make someone else feel like they don't belong. Like there is something inherently not worthy in who they are as humans. I can feel it in my soul right now as I even say these words. Like I can feel my my chest tightening. And I am so passionate about this that one of the company values at Jetset is that we believe in the value we add because you are worthy. You have value. Don't ever let someone else other you. So I will never forget the way that woman in high school treated me. Like I was very much a second-class citizen. Her distaste was just obvious. But there was just this one defining moment when the guy got invited to a debutante ball, which I didn't even know what that was. But I just remember being over at his house and I saw the invitation on the kitchen table and I shouldn't have looked. I snooped, right? It was like sitting right there. I saw it. And there was an RSVP card with his name on it. in her handwriting. And there was an option to select whether he'd be bringing a date or going stag. Check marks are small, but they have a lot of power. I wonder if you've ever had your self-worth reduced to a check mark, right? Like when you're filling out an application and you have to select which category you belong in. In this instance, the check mark was beside the word stag. And I will always remember that sinking feeling in my gut at what that meant. I was his girlfriend, but I was not good enough to accompany him to this social event. My presence would have actually been a hindrance from him meeting the type of woman he should have been with. Or worse, God, what's worse is, would I have been an embarrassment? So even though the guy had chosen me, the world where he belonged would never choose me. I would always be an outsider. I would always be an imposter, just trying to fit in. And I know for a fact that this message sent a not so subtle reminder to my brain that when I attempt to enter into a room that is clearly made of a different societal status, that I'm not good enough to actually belong. That is the reverberating echo that happened years later as I broke into an industry that, operated on an entirely different orbit than even my high school could have imagined, right? Like in my 20s, I was brokering private jet trips around the world, and I still am going, well, who am I to have such a right? But I think this is where imposter syndrome is actually a beautiful thing, because not every moment of self-doubt is meant to erode your confidence. In fact, I think it's often meant to keep us in check against our entitlement. When I had this conversation with our marketing manager, she's our marketing manager for Jetset and for this podcast. Her name is Andrea. She's lovely. She reminded me that people who have to work for this type and from this type of deficit, they often show up with a sense of gratitude that allows them to see the ways that they can better and change their surroundings, because they're the ones who can imagine a better world, because they're not the ones that come from it, right? And I'm going to actually quote her directly. Shout out to Andrea. I had to write this down. I thought this was so good. She said, "I feel like imposter syndrome is just another phrase for being different, which is a huge benefit. Being different is good. Having a different lived experience from another person is good. Having a different perspective is good. It's all good. But as a society, we treat being different as something to fear. And when we overcome that fear, it's a massive benefit." That's my call to action to each of you listeners. We cannot control whether we come from the right pedigree or the right race or belief or gender that tends to hold the positions of power, but we can control how we make an impact on our communities and our industry in spite of those differences, because of those differences. That chip on your shoulder, that little inkling of imposter syndrome, you can use it to your advantage. It is so important to do the work to release ourselves from the misconception that finding our way is the same as fitting in, because it is not. I still don't entirely feel like I belong at most of the events that I go to, but I know, because of my faith, because of the work that I've done, that none of this is actually a reflection of my self-worth, and it shouldn't be for you either. I am so curious if you felt this way too, and I would love to hear from you as you do the work to turn imposter syndrome into inspiration. Again, if you need a tool for that, jump over to lindseyepperly.com/resources, download the workbook that'll help you in that particular journey. And please, 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 as you continue this, know that I'm going to be right there alongside you, bringing you stories from some of the coolest leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives during this upcoming season of Who Made You the Boss. So make sure you click the follow, subscribe button here. But also, please, I want to hear from you. I started this podcast to feel less alone in my own journey. That's why I'm coming to you with all of these stories. So it is a delight when you respond to the newsletter or you send me a DM. So if we haven't connected, please feel free to reach out to me with more about what you want to hear on this podcast or stories that you might feel inspired to share. It means the world to me that you do that. And if you think this would resonate with someone you know, go ahead and share it with them now. That makes such a big difference for us. And it helps me know that these stories and this work are meaningful and impactful. So thanks for being part of this journey. I am really excited for another awesome season with you along for the ride at Who Made You the Boss. If you've gained some valuable insights from listening to Who Made You the Boss, there are 2 ways we ask our listeners to show us some love. First, share this episode with a friend who you know would benefit. The more we impact others, the more we can grow our resources to impact you. It's a win-win, and it helps us a ton. Second, if you'll take a moment to leave Who Made You the Boss a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform, that helps us continue create meaningful work, and it just makes our day. Thank you, listeners, for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep being the boss of your own incredible story.